Hey guys, and welcome to Lingor, and welcome to the SEAL Team 3 ACRE Radios tutorial, brought to you by Chief Petty Officer Templeton. Today I'm going to go through all the different radios that's included in ACRE, all of their functions, and all of the tricks you need to know to get them to work correctly. The first thing I want to go through is the command keys, because ACRE has a lot of them, and takes a little while to get to know them all because they're all Control Shift something and Control or Alt Shift something else, and it gets confusing after a while. But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty simple and it comes pretty second nature when you're on the battlefield. The first keys combination I want to go through is Alt Shift E, and that's going to bring up your radio menu, and that will enable you to lower your headset, which helps when you're getting a lot of radio communications and you need to try and hear somebody maybe talking next to you or something, and you can lower your headset, and that pretty much turns the volume down on all the radio communications you might be getting at that time. It's pretty much like taking off your headphones. You also have a radio list, and if you click that, it will show you all the radios that you have in your possession at that time, and you can go through and click any of these radios, and it will automatically select that radio and bring up that radio's interaction screen. So if I click the 343 here, it brings up my 343, and I can make the selections that I want onto it, and then I can close it out. Now, another good key combination to know is how to switch between the radios. If you have more than one radio on your person at any time, you can only have one active radio at a time. So to switch between the radios you want to use, you're going to hold Control and Shift and hit A, that's Alpha, or S, that's Sierra, to switch forward and backwards through the radios that you have on your person, assuming you have more than one. Once you have the right radio selected, you will see it in the bottom right hand corner of your screen, and then you can transmit and receive on that radio. Well, you'll receive on all radios, but you can transmit on that radio. Now, the next thing you need to know is how to bring up your currently selected radio to make changes to the settings, like frequency or channel changes, volume changes, power settings changes, and things like that. And the key combination you're going to need to know for that is Control Shift X, that's X-ray, and that'll bring up whatever menu you have or whatever radio you have currently selected and allow you to make changes to those settings on that radio. You can hit Control Shift X again to hide it, and that's pretty much the basic key commands you need to know. Another good trick to know is how to set radios to different sides of your headset, and it makes things a lot clearer in the battle zone. If you're communicating on multiple radios, you'll be able to differentiate what radio you're listening to at any given time by setting them to either your left ear or your right ear or both ears. And the way you do that is you select the radio that you want to change. So let's say we just selected the 343, and we want to put the 343 in our right ear. You hold Control and Shift and hit the right arrow, and it'll say radio set to right, and that means your radio now will only receive on the right channel of your headphones or speakers. And then you can go and change to, let's say, the 119, and you can hit Control Shift left arrow. It'll say radio set to left. Now you're only going to receive the 119 in your left ear. So it's a really good way of differentiating between comms. Say if you're talking maybe to another ground unit on one radio and an air support asset on another radio, you can set them to individual ears to differentiate to who you're talking to easily without having to check your radio. If you want to center your radios again and have them on both ears, you just hold Control Shift and hit up, your up arrow, and it'll set the radio to center, and it'll be back in both ears. So that's pretty much how to change your radio as far as your headset goes, how to change what radio you have selected, and how to bring up your radio interface key or your interface menu. The next thing you need to know is how to transmit with ACRE. Since you're using TeamSpeak with ACRE, you're going to be using your TeamSpeak bound talk key. So whatever key you have bound for your TeamSpeak push-to-talk will be your local chat key, and that will be like talking to anybody within hearing distance of you. So anybody who is walking away from you, you will be getting quieter and quieter until they cannot hear you anymore, if you're talking in local chat. Now, if you need to talk over the radio, the default ACRE key to transmit on the currently selected radio is caps lock. And when you push that down, you'll hear a beep and a squelch, and that'll indicate that you're speaking or that you're transmitting through that radio. And also the ACRE radio indicator will come up in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. Once you're done transmitting, you'll release the key, it'll squawk again to indicate that you've finished your transmission, and the ACRE radio box will go away. So I'll demonstrate that right now. We'll select the 343 with our Control Shift S and A keys respectively, and we'll get up. For some reason I fell down, and we'll push and hold caps lock key. Transmitting on 343, and I release the key and you're done transmitting. It's pretty self-explanatory, just like a walkie-talkie. Everybody's played with walkie-talkies when they were kids. Some of you might even still play with them in the army or a police force or whatever. Everybody knows how to use a radio. So that's how you do that. One thing to note is that the default push-to-talk key for in-game voice over IP for ARMA is also caps lock. So you're going to want to unbind that or bind that to another key, so you're not transmitting via ACRE and transmitting in-game as well, because that can cause some problems and confusion with communications. So make sure you unbind your ARMA push-to-talk key. By default it's caps lock, so just make sure you have that sorted out. Now we're going to go into the individual radios and go through their individual properties and what they're used for, uses on the battlefield, names, and all that kind of good stuff, just so you have a familiar and general idea of what to expect with each radio. We're going to start with the 343, so we can bring it up with Control Shift X-ray, and you'll see we have this nice little radio right in front of us. Very simple, no BS interface. There's very little settings on this radio. All there is a channel setting and a volume setting. The channel setting can be turned to select channels with the right and left click of the mouse, depending on which way you want it to go. It has 16 channels in total. It's a ultra high frequency radio that operates on 2.4 gigahertz or 2,400 megahertz. It has a channel or a frequency range of about 400. Oh, I'm sorry. It has a frequency range of about 16 megahertz, but so each channel just changes 1 megahertz. It's not something you really need to know, but if you want the technical aspect of it, that's how it works. Each channel will shift the frequency by 1 megahertz. So its frequency range is 2401 megahertz to 2416 megahertz. It's about a 50 milliwatt output, which is very, very low output. So this thing only has a range of, say, 500 meters or so on a good day with line of sight. Obviously, hills and valleys and elevation changes are going to affect that range pretty drastically. This radio has a really bad reputation with ARMA 2 players. Everybody calls it the cheap radio or the toy radio or the Walmart radio, and it's mostly just because it has such a bad range and no settings. But this actually can play a very valuable role in your communications net on the battlefield. Because this is untouchable and uncommunicatable by any of the other command level radios in ACRE, it has its own net. So as long as you're on a clear channel, you can communicate with anybody else on that channel within 500 or so meters of you without worrying about interrupting communications. So it's really good for squad level communications between members of a squad or a fire team. You can communicate easily between members of a squad that might otherwise be out of spoken, shouting distance. So that pretty much explains the ANPRC 343. Like I said, it's a very short range and low features radio, and it's good for inter-squad communications, this communications between squad members that might get separated, say, by a firefight or something. The next radio we're going to go over is the ANPRC 148. That is, there's two variations of this. There's a VHF variant and a UHF variant. And all that denotes is the type of antenna and type of broadcast that is being used. The VHF is a slightly better range and a slightly better ability to get around mountains and hills and elevation changes and such. So the VHF is usually a better choice for the two 148 variants. Now, the 148 is also the first command level radio that we will talk about today. And when I say command level radio, that means it's going to be used mostly for intra-squad communications, and that's communications from one squad leader to another squad leader, or one squad leader to his platoon leader, or something like that. So it's more of a command level radio. It's got a lot bigger range than the 343. It's got a lot more functionality, and I'm going to show you some of that right now. So if we pull up the 148, you'll see it's a major difference is it's got an LCD screen and a couple of buttons you can press to get different functions out of it. There's also two knobs at the top. There's a channel knob and a volume knob. They're pretty self-explanatory. The channel knob will cycle through each of the 100 presets that are currently stored in this radio, and the volume knob will adjust your volume. Left and right click respectively to raise and lower the volume. The next big thing is you have 100 different channels to select through. Now these channels are different completely than the 16 channels that are on the 343. The 148 and all the other command level radios operate at a much lower frequency, from 30 megahertz to 512 megahertz. That means you'll never ever contact a 343 with any other command level radio. But you will be able to contact any command level radio with this radio, assuming that you're on the correct net, which is the correct channel setting. Now, to change channels, you simply just press the up and down arrows on the button interface, or spin the channel knob with the left and right click. Now, you can also set a power setting on the 343s, or on this 148 radio, as well as any of the other command radios. Now, to do that, you push mode twice to take you to the power menu, and it'll show you your current power in milliwatts and your new setting that you're making in milliwatts. 100 is your default, and it's also your lowest power setting. You can change the power settings by using your up and down arrows on your keypad. Your maximum power setting is 5,000. That's usually what you're going to want it on at any given time, just so you know you have that extra range. Once you've made your power selection, you hit enter, and it stores that power selection for that channel. So make sure you realize what channel you're setting that power on, because it's a per channel programming. So if you were to switch to channel 5 or so, you'd have to reset your power to whatever you wanted it to. Once you've set it to that channel, it's stored in that channel. So you only have to set it once for each channel, but if you change channels, you have to make sure you've set the power for that channel. You can also go to GR mode. If you hit the mode button once, you're in GR mode, and that's a way to select a custom frequency. Each of these numbers on the top represents one of the placeholders in the frequency readout right here, and so you can use your up and down arrows to select a digit and use your GR key to change the digit placement. And once you've set your custom frequency, you can hit enter, and it'll store that frequency in whatever preset you have selected, and that will be the new frequency preset for that channel. And be advised that if you do change your frequency, make sure you know whoever you're talking to knows what frequency you're putting in, because once you change your frequency, nobody's going to be able to pick you up unless they're on that exact frequency. That's something you can do with all of the command level radios, and it's helpful if you need a secret private channel or something, but it's really not used because 100 channels is a lot to choose from, and it's a lot easier just to change to a preset channel than it is to set your own custom. That pretty much covers the 148. Just make sure I got everything for it. Yep, that's it. It's like I said, the first command level radio, and it's probably the most common radio you'll find on the battlefield. Everybody usually grabs a 148. Alright, the next radio we're going to go over is the 152. If we bring up the 152 here, you'll see it's got a bit of a different interface, a few more buttons to press, and no knobs. Now, a lot of people say that the 152 is a superior radio to the 148, and in my experience, that's a load of poo. The 152 is exactly the same as the 148 VHF. That's all it is a 148 VHF that's turned green and has more buttons. It's got the same power, maximum power output. It's got the same 120 centimeter VHF antenna. It's got the same maximum range. It just has a couple more buttons to push, and it's a simple radio, and all it does is come down to personal preference on whether or not you want to use a 153 or a 152 or a 148. You can switch your channels here with your preset buttons. You can change your volume, I believe, with the left and right keys here. Yes. And you can also go into a programming mode if you press the 7 key. You go into your programming menu, you can program your power settings for that channel, well, just like the 148, and you can set a custom frequency in the frequency menu, just like the 148 does in GR mode. Now, if you go into your power menu here, you hit enter, you'll see there's low, medium, high. There's only 3 settings for the power output for this radio. The low power output is 250 milliwatts. The medium power output is 2000 milliwatts. And the high power output is 5000 milliwatts, just like the 148. There's a user setting, and at this time, all it is just like the maximum power setting. So if you use user, it's going to treat it just like a maximum power setting of 5000. You can set a custom frequency if you hit your 7 key and go to frequency. Well, you can't set a custom frequency on this. You get nothing. So all you can do is set your power on this radio, or use the presets as far as your channels go. So that pretty much covers the 152. Like I said, it's the exact same thing as a 148 VHF, just green, a little bit uglier, and a little bit more buttons. Alright, the next radio we're going to go over is the 119 Manpack radio. Now, the Manpack radio 119, ANPRC 119, it is a SYNCARS radio, which means it's a secure net radio that is used to communicate between squad level and command level, or command level and air assets or support asset units. So it has a much longer range than the 148s or the 343s or the 152s. This also has the highest power setting, output setting, of any of the radios in the ACRE mod, but it's also been disabled, so there's really no point, and that's the PA setting here on your power knob. It works in it's supposed to work in a vehicle to be an extremely high power output and extremely high transmit range, but it's currently disabled to, or handicapped, I guess you could say, to only about 4000 milliwatts. It still has a longer range than the 148s, but it is directly affected by line of sight, and so any hills or valleys or terrain or objects in your way will definitely direct or affect the transmission and reception range of this radio. This is an old radio. This is a Vietnam era or Cold War era radio system, and so it is a very simple interface. All these other knobs have no function. The ComSec knob has no function. The mode knob has no function. The squelch knob down here, if you turn it to LD, it'll shut the radio off, but that's about the only function that it has. Just leave it on. You'll never really need to turn the radio off. The volume knob over here will set your volume. Currently, by default, it's maxed all the way to maximum. You can left click and turn it all the way down to minimum, and that's effectively turning the radio off as well. Probably just leave it on maximum and you'll be fine. Now, this radio only has 6 preset settings, and it has a very limited frequency range of about 30 megahertz to about 87 megahertz, I believe. You can set manual frequencies, just like on the 148. All you have to do is set either to manual or any of the presets, and you can overwrite the presets with a custom frequency. And the way you do that, we'll set it on manual here, is you go over and hit the frequency button. It'll clear the selection and give you a blinking digit. You enter your frequency, let's say 50 megahertz exactly. So that's the frequency we want, is 50000. And once you're done entering your frequency, you just hit the CTO and it saves it to that setting. Oh, it won't save it to the manual setting, I forgot. Manual is stupid. But you can do that exact procedure on any of the presets and it will save your custom frequency to those presets. That pretty much covers the 119. It's a really simple radio to use, but it's kind of crappy, and the 117 Foxtrot just trumps it in all directions. So I highly recommend using the 117 over the 119 any chance you get. That's also going to be the next radio we go over here. And let me just pull it up in my gear menu and pull it up with the radio, with the radio selection key. And you'll see it's a big pack radio as well. And it has an LCD screen with a lot of function selections and a single knob. This knob doesn't do anything at all. Don't even have to worry about it. Just leave it on PT. You want to be in PT mode. That's your transmit mode. Alright. You'll see you'll have your preset selection here, and your all of your buttons here, they're pretty self-explanatory. Volume on the left, your preset selector switch on the right, an enter button, a clear button. This will also control your volume. I believe. Oh no, it won't. But you'll use this to make settings in the radio menus, as I'll show you right now. If you need to change your power with this radio, you need to select the channel setting preset that you want to change the power on, because like all the other radio command radios, they are per channel programming. So if we want to change the channel or the power for channel 1, make sure it's set on channel 1, and then you press 8, and that brings up channel 1. So here again you can select what channel you want to set it to. Once you've selected the net you want to set it to, you hit enter. It'll send you to the function menu. The only two functions that work on this radio currently is the frequency and the power. The rest of these are useless. They have no function at all. Obviously with the frequency you can set a custom frequency for this channel, but what we want to do is set the power. So we can scroll around to power, hit enter, and it'll show you your current power and your new power, just like on the 148. Your lowest power setting, I believe, is 1000 milliwatts. Yes. And your maximum power is going to be 20,000 milliwatts, or 20 watts. This is the longest range you're going to get out of any radio, and I suggest leaving it at 20,000 for whatever transmit channel you're going to be on, because this thing will pretty much reach across most any map. Lingor's a little bit big, so if you're at the very top and somebody's at the very bottom and there's some mountains in the way, you're probably not going to get through. But if you're in a chopper or something up high, you may very well reach all the way across the map. So once you have your power set, you just hit enter, and it sets that power for that channel. And obviously once you switch to channel 2, if you go check your power, it'll show that it's at 5,000 again because we've only set it for channel 1. So make sure you know what channel you're setting it to. That pretty much covers all of the radios. Oh, one more thing about the 117. It's a really flexible radio. It transmits on both VHF and UHF. If you ever are looking at your character when they have a 117 Foxtrot equipped, you'll see it's got 2 radios. There's the 120 centimeter VHF radio, and they also have that 14-inch UHF radio, the little one sticking out of the center there. So it's able to transmit on both of those frequency ranges, and it makes it a very flexible and very powerful radio to transmit on. That pretty much covers how to use the radios. They're very simple once you understand the concepts behind them. There's a lot of buttons to press, it seems like at first, but once you realize that half of the functions don't work, it's a very simple concept to grasp. I'm going to cut this off right here for now. Eventually I want to do another tutorial on how to use them within vehicles, how to mount them in vehicles, and also I want to do a range test on each radio so I can give you a rough distance between, or a maximum and distance on maximum power for each of these radios. In an ideal situation, like say over water, where there's nothing in between you and your target receiving radio. So someday we'll try that out, and maybe I'll get you a distinctive list of maximum and minimum ranges for each radio. But until then, this is CPO Templeton and the rest of SEAL Team 3 wishing you guys good luck on the battlefield, and I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and hope to see you guys on the servers, because we love seeing everybody playing on the servers. Alright guys, take care and enjoy playing Arma 2.